Have you ever been in a situation where you feel like you're playing a game, but you don't actually know the rules? It can be pretty confusing, right? Well, that's often what it feels like when we're trying to navigate different cultures. Today, we're going to try and unlock that hidden software that runs our social interactions. You know, the unwritten rules that can make or break a connection. And trust me, getting a handle on them can change everything. So let's start with a story. We're going all the way back to the 14th century with the famous traveler Ibn Battuta. Picture this. He's approaching a town in what is now Turkey, and suddenly he's met by two different groups, and both of them are just desperate to be his host. Now, this wasn't just some casual invitation. Oh no, this was a really high-stakes social dance, a public show of generosity and status. The big question was, who was going to win the honor? You see, for Ibn Battuta, an encounter like that was a huge, rare event. But for us, well, that's just a regular Tuesday, isn't it? Every single email we send, every video call we're on, every online interaction we have, that's a cultural crossing. The world hasn't just come to our doorstep, it's practically moved into our living rooms. But there's a catch to all of this constant connection. It's revealed this kind of invisible barrier, and honestly, it's often a lot harder to get around than any language. We're talking about the barrier of culture. Think about it. You know that feeling when you're trying to speak a new language and you just completely mess up a sentence? What usually happens? People are pretty cool about it, right? They might laugh a little, but they're encouraging, they try to help you out. It's really not a big deal. But cultural mistakes, oh, that is a whole different ballgame. If you, say, stand a little too close to someone or you use the wrong kind of greeting, people usually don't say anything. They don't correct you. There's just this silent, awkward feeling in the air. A misunderstanding starts to form. And the crazy part is, you might not ever even know that you made a mistake. That's the invisible barrier. So if we actually want to get past this barrier, we first have to ask a bigger question. What really is culture? Because it's so much deeper than just the food we eat, or the flags we fly, or the festivals we celebrate. Okay, to help us wrap our heads around this, let's look at the work of a researcher named Geert Hofstede. He came up with this brilliant analogy. He said, culture is like an onion. On the outside, you've got the layers you can see pretty easily, things like symbols, heroes, and rituals. But when you get to the very core of that onion, the part that gives the whole thing its flavor, that's where you find our values. These are our deep-seated beliefs about what's good and evil, what's right and wrong, what's normal and what's abnormal. The source material calls it the collective programming of the mind, and it's basically installed in us unconsciously from the moment we're born. This is that hidden software we're talking about. Here's another way to think about it. You've got big C culture and little c culture. Big C is all the stuff you'd find in a museum. Art, history, fancy literature. And yeah, it's important. But for our day-to-day interactions, what really matters is little c culture. That's the unwritten rules of daily life. So let's peel back another layer and see how this little c culture, all these hidden values, actually shape our interactions in the real world. I mean, how complicated can a simple hello be? Well, it turns out pretty complicated. In Turkish, for example, the greeting you choose can say a lot about your social circle, your education, maybe even your politics. If you get it wrong, you might be sending a message you had absolutely no intention of sending. Okay, now let's take it up a notch and talk about politeness. We all think we know what it means to be polite, right? But the way we show it can be so different from one culture to the next, and this is where things can get really tricky. Okay, check out this comparison between Turkish and German universities. In Turkey, it's pretty normal for a professor to call a student by their first name using sen, which is the informal, friendly way of saying you. But in Germany, a professor will almost always use the formal Sie and the student's last name, no matter how old they are. Now, neither one of these is right or wrong, but a German might think the Turkish professor is being way too familiar, while a Turk might see the German professor as cold and distant. It's a perfect example of a cultural software clash, where both people are doing what's correct according to their rules, but they still end up misunderstanding each other. So, with all this complexity, how are we supposed to navigate any of this? I mean, do we really need to memorize a giant rule book for every single culture on Earth? Well, thankfully, the answer is no. The goal isn't to become some walking encyclopedia of cultural do's and don'ts. It's really about developing a much more fundamental skill, something called inner cultural competence. This isn't just one thing. It's more like a set of mental muscles that you can actually build over time. It all starts with openness, being curious about differences instead of judging them. It also involves empathy, where you genuinely try to see things from the other person's perspective. And it requires flexibility, being aware of all the hidden cues in communication, and just being okay with those moments when things are a little unclear or confusing. And the very first step, the absolute foundation for all of this, is just one single really powerful shift in how we see the world. We have to get this. Our own way of doing things isn't the default or the normal way. It's just our way. Our own cultural rules are as invisible to us as water is to a fish. They feel like universal truths, but they're not. And honestly, that might be the coolest part of all this. Every single time you have an encounter with another culture, it's not just a chance to learn about them, it's like holding up a mirror. It's a chance to discover the invisible rules that have been guiding you your entire life. So, I'll leave you with a question to chew on. What are the invisible rules of your culture? Think about it. How close do you stand when you're talking to someone? How do you show respect? How do you say no without actually saying the word no? Understanding your own programming is the first and most important step to truly connecting with the world around you.